Hi everyone, today let's take a look at Fed Powell's comments once again. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. So Fed Powell said they are not going to wait until we get 2% before we see cuts. So he said this before, but I feel like he was a little bit more deliberate with it. He said the central bank is not going to wait until inflation hits 2% before we start to see cuts. He said the long and variable lags thing once again, which we've been hearing for a long time. But the overall feel to me was a little bit more dovish, I guess. Just my opinion. He also said a hard landing was not a likely scenario. He never felt like that was a likely scenario. And he also mentioned the most recent CPI reports saying inflation has been cooling. We've been seeing that for a while. But he did mention at the beginning of the meeting he did not intend to make any signals about when the Fed might be cutting interest rates. So I guess that's a little bit more hawkish, but overall, it just felt a little bit more dovish to me in my opinion. He also mentioned that people that he doesn't know say, hey, cut rates, which I agree. Go ahead, JPow, cut some rates and help out the investors. And speaking of interest rates, let's go ahead and take a quick look at the Fed futures. You can see for July, expecting 93% chance of a pause. So nothing for July and really nothing here for September, 88% chance. But once we get here to September, it says basically 100% chance we're going to see at least one cut by this time period. You can see chances the previous week, 24.4% chance of a pause. And then you can see yesterday, still a little bit, but at this point, 90% yesterday, 88% now. And the only reason that went down a little bit is because this floated over to a chance of a 50 basis point cut. So markets think September is the day. And then as we go to November, still a higher likelihood of 2 cuts by November. So I think that's a little optimistic. Markets might be a little bit ahead of themselves, but I was pretty surprised to see that such a high percentage there for September. Moving over to fear and greed, you can see we stepped up to a 62 from a 56. My guess is this is still because we're seeing strength and breadth continue to step up over the last couple days, which is true. Put call ratio still at very low levels, 0.63, but we're seeing volatility continue to step higher here. We've been watching it. We'll take a look at that later on the charts. And then safe haven demand as well as junk bond demand still both in regular greed. Moving over to the seasonality chart here, you can see still a bullish period. 15th was expected to be a pretty strong day. You can see it there. Didn't quite get that. Tomorrow's supposed to be a little bit flatter, so we'll see how that plays. Markets did go higher after this weekend's events, but not a lot higher, so really no change to the structure. Looking for flat to slightly down for tomorrow. Moving over to earnings, we got Goldman Sachs and BlackRock. BlackRock actually missed on the top line, but beat on the bottom. Goldman beat on both, as they do. And then looking at tomorrow, United Health, Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, Charles Schwab, Progressive. Still lots of financial names out there. And then for Wednesday, J&J, US Bank Corp, Discover. Still some more bank stocks out there before we get to the heavy hitter on Thursday, which is Netflix for this week. Moving over to the economic calendar, nothing here for Monday besides Fed Powell speaking. Then for tomorrow, we have core and headline retail sales. That's definitely going to be interesting at 8:30. And basically nothing the rest of the day. Atlanta Fed GDP, fairly interesting. And then looking at Wednesday, CPI for the Eurozone. Fed Waller speaking, that could be interesting. And then the 20-year bond auction. Moving over to the Max Pain here for the SPY. You can see Max Pain still down there at 544. Stock price 561, so tons and tons of downside potential. Decent amount of options there at 2 million. Put call ratio still super high there at 4.4. Can't expect too much of a fall with all those options in the market. 545, decent put wall there. And then you have some calls at 555, some at 570. But this chart looks a lot different than it did over the weekend. And honestly, it looks a lot more bullish with so many puts in the market, not a lot of calls, and that put call ratio super high, although the options do seem a little bit less. Moving over to the chart, starting off with the SPY here, you can see it pushed towards that upper trend line. Again, couldn't quite get there, pulled back, hit the 55 on the close, bounced, ended up positive on the day, 0.28, still grinding along this upper trend line in terms of price action. No change to that structure. Still holding these higher lows while hitting that upper resistance. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish. Short term, more neutral. We saw bearish momentum at the end of the session. RSI is below the SMA, but it is popping a little bit after hours. So really no change to the thesis. Still grinding price action. And then looking at the Tasty charts here on the SPY, you can see that upper ATR band, 562.28. touched that level, couldn't get above it, wicked those highs again, still grinding price action at that upper ATR, very little volume, momentum slightly swinging to bullish. And then looking at that 4 hour, you can see we did pop back into bullish conditions. ATR support now 555.81, upper ATR band 565.81, touched that on the first candle there at 7 o'clock, rejected from there, held the 8 EMA, and it does look a little bit more bullish today than it did in the previous trading session. Moving over to the NASDAQ, similar move, tried to rally, couldn't get above 500, rejected from there, held the trend, bounced from that slightly higher, again rallying a little bit after hours. 0.27 on the day, momentum bearish, RSI bearish. I don't really expect to eclipse this previous high, and if we do touch that, I think we're probably going to reject pretty heavy from there. That's up at 503. So we'll see if we can get there. Right now, looks like we're looking for just a swing up, expecting rejections around that 500 area. Moving over to the Tasty charts here on the Qs, you can see we missed that upper ATR band, 503.74, which is right at these previous highs here. You can see still held the 8 EMA, that's at 494.08, swung up a little bit, did get slightly higher than the previous day. Momentum still bearish here, so really no change on the thesis. And then looking at that 4 hour chart, the NASDAQ actually looks weaker than the SPY. Tested ATR resistance at 499.91, rejected from there. Held the 9 EMA and then started to bounce on that last candle of the day. Very little volume. Momentum is swinging to bullish though. It's still hanging in there with that resistance at 499.91. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow, you can see the Russell jumped 1.9%, hit the trend line, rejected from there. Still up a little bit more after hours. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish, volume bullish. Super extended now. And you can see this is critical here. So we touched it in mid-March, touched it again in April. Now we're here again. We'll see if we can reject or not. We'll see what happens. Hopefully we break, push to the next zone around 220. That would be cool, but right now, interesting zone. And then looking at the Dow, new record high on the Dow, well above all these previous highs. Gap to it, 0.51 on the day. And it's rallying a little bit more after hours. So big volume, big momentum, still seeing that broadening into the old economy. Moving over to stocks that moved today, we got Caterpillar, big day there, 3%, breaking this downtrend line that it's been in. Could be a bit of a move higher. It looks actually very similar to the Russell 2000. Couple of down moves, held the 144, now it's breaking higher. Interesting. It's above the 345.29 level. 363.32 is the next one. And then Goldman, this has just been on a massive run. You can see it just continues up and to the right here, and this is another strong day. 2.57% upper trend line sitting up there around 508, and I would guess that it's going to get there similar to this previous run. Moving over to the Mag 7, we did get a slight bullish day, 0.25, basically in line with the major indices. Momentum bearish, RSI still bearish. Still coming off of that rejection pretty decently. That was up around the 291 area, and now we're still back in that 278 area. So still a bullish structure, still holding that 21 EMA, but it does seem like this is going to hold a lower high and then roll down still, in my opinion. Moving over to Apple and Tesla, Apple continues to be on this rocket ship with basically 2 down days in the last month. Massive runs. 1.67% here. Didn't quite hit the upper trend line, but we're still in this range. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish, continues to go. And then Microsoft did squeeze out a slightly bullish day at that 21 EMA. I still don't like this setup. It is struggling to hold support. Couldn't even engulf the previous candle. If it's going to hold, it really needs to do it now. But this does look like a pretty strong rejection here. Trend support still down around that 449 area. Moving over to Tesla and NVIDIA, Tesla up 1.78, hit that resistance here at 264.68 and then fell below that 255 level. 9 EMA still there, 249.96, so it's still hanging in there. And then looking at NVIDIA down on the day, 0.62. This just looks like a double top resistance here. Just seems like it's going to roll. 125 is still support. If that level breaks, you got not a lot of support until we get down to the 119 area at this previous consolidation low, or the 55 EMA down all the way at 111. Moving over to Meta and Amazon, these have looked terrible, down 0.54 and 0.91. Support 489.67, so Meta still in this no man's land. It's right at this low consolidation, but I would expect it to go a little bit lower. And then Amazon, 3 down days in a row, overthrew the 21, but it did hold. Momentum RSI still bearish. I think this is still headed to that 188 area. These have been some of the worst performing components of the Mag 7 over the past couple of days. Moving over to staples and discretionaries, both were down 0.58 and 0.11. Staples hit the price target. First time we actually touched it there at 193.81. Didn't quite get there on Thursday last week, but we touched it now, rejected from there, down more after hours. So seems to be an important zone, seems to be rejecting from there. And then staples similarly looks like another lower high and a potential breakdown to that 76 area. Moving over to financials and oil and gas, I have been bullish on both of these, and sure enough, they continue to rocket here. Financials 1.46, oil and gas 1.49. Big volume, big ramp on both of these. Broke this trend line, stuck at the 55, but I think it's going to continue higher up to that 154 area. Moving over to oil and gold here. Oil's been falling, but it's still holding that 21 EMA, slightly bearish. I think it's still going to hold up higher low and then push, but it doesn't look super great right now. Still in this consolidation, pull back in time after the really strong rally. And then gold hit our price target 225.09 after we saw this break here, continued higher, hit that level. Now we'll see what happens if it's going to reject from here. Potential zone for a take profit off of this rally. Got to look for that break in continuation to price discovery. Otherwise, this is resistance and it could break down. Moving over to RIOT and Marathon. So it finally happened. We talked about the break on the weekend video. We got the push here, 17% and 18.38%, huge volume, pushing towards this upper trend line around $27. Big push, finally happened. So we've been talking about it for a while, held the zones, everything looked good, and sure enough, it followed through. Moving over to 20 and 50-day breadth, you can see we're right at this critical level here from mid-May. This was the turning point for markets last time, and it looks like that might be it again. 50-day breadth did overthrow that level. It's right at 68.66, so we'll see if we can push there, get up to the 77 area. Overall, these still look bullish, could just be a slight pullback, but they are at critical zones of resistance. Moving over to the dollar here, the dollar found a little bit of a base from the Friday into today's session. So you can see that setting up here, touched that level, rallied up, hit the 55 on the hourly, which is at 104.27. I don't really think that this is going to go higher. I still think this is still a downtrend. You can see 2 bullish days, big down move. Could see another retest, 104.4, and then big down move. We'll see how it plays. Momentum bearish, RSI still bearish, not oversold quite yet. It is at a low level. The dollar doesn't get oversold too often, but it is pretty close, so we'll see how it plays. If the dollar starts to find a little bit of rally, we might see a pullback in markets. Moving over to the 2-year and the 10-year, you can see both of these actually caught a little bit of a bid here today. Kind of interesting. 0.09 on the 2-year, so nothing crazy. 10-year, 1.1%, so again, seeing that 10-year outperformance pretty substantially, not oversold the way that the 2-year is. This has been a falling knife on the 2-year. 10-year still holding this bottom that we saw in mid-June, and you can see the 2-year is well below that level. So 2-year still hanging out at 4.25, 10-year just short of 4.5. And I expect to continue towards those normalized conditions. Moving over to JNK and TLT, basically no change on JNK, zeros across the board. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish, still looking for a push to 95.61, and then TLT down day, but still holding support, 92.82. See how that plays. Momentum did roll down, RSI, interesting zone. Need it to hold that if it's going to do it. The SMA has been moving lower, so that's concerning, but I still like the longer term thesis, and it is still in this medium term rally. Moving over to volatility here, you can see move index finding a big bounce, momentum swinging to bullish. Maybe we're expecting a little bit more volatility out of bonds. Interesting. Engulf the 2 previous candles and then some of the third. And then look at the VIX here. Decent pop, 5.46% on the VIX. Momentum swinging to bullish, RSI swinging to bullish. We held the higher low, which is concerning. So it looks like the VIX is finding some room, even with markets holding the gains that they had today. So definitely a slight bearish concern there as we go into tomorrow's trading. Moving over to my accounts, you can see I made a little bit of money on the day. Most of that came from my IRA, which most of that came from the IWM going higher. Made money there. Max profit on that is $216.70, and you can see we're just a little bit above that, about 40 cents, but still have an open loss of $200, so that should come in about $160 more potential profit there over the next 7 days, which is decent with plenty of protection. And then I have my XOP position. Obviously that rallied, made money there. And then the Qs, it was slightly positive, but I really didn't profit from that the way that I should have. It pushed really strong to the upside and then fell really strong to the downside. Should have traded it like sideways choppy price action, but I just didn't. So I am set up for tomorrow with a put at 497. Made some money there as rallied into the close. And then I sold a 497 for 2 days from now and 4 days from now. So we'll see how that plays. If I get executed on these 497s tomorrow, shouldn't be an issue for these 497s in 2 days. Each of those is only one option, and I did sell 2 puts for tomorrow. I might reset this position. You can see very slight negative delta there. And overall, my deltas are very small, looking for more sideways choppy with a little bit more bullishness on the Russell. Let me know down in the comments section what you think of Jerome Powell's comments, did it feel more dovish to you, or was it more of the same? And will markets be able to continue this grind higher, or is this finally the topping formation after what has been basically a 9-month rally? Definitely like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video, and make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.